What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel, and in today's video I wanted to do a recap of what we saw in game 1 between the Utah Jazz and the Los Angeles Clippers, and I will also be talking about some trends we will see moving forward along in this series. So without further ado, let's get straight into the video. So as a lot of basketball fans know, the Los Angeles Clippers and the Utah Jazz are some of the best three-point shooting teams in the league today. So with that being said, you already know we're about to get a lot of three-point shooting in this series. But surprisingly for both teams, neither team really shot that well this game. The Utah Jazz were shooting about 40% from the field overall, while the Los Angeles Clippers were shooting about 42% overall from the field. And for three-point percentage, the Clippers were shooting 38.1%, while the Utah Jazz were only shooting 34% from the three-point line. But to start off the game, the Utah Jazz were pretty much getting any shot they wanted to at the first 3 minutes of the game, until about the 9-minute mark when the Los Angeles Clippers finally started to make a run. And that pretty much gave the Clippers the confidence to keep building and scoring off of what they were doing in the first quarter. Last night, the second quarter of basketball was probably the best quarter of basketball for the Los Angeles Clippers in total, even though it was a tough night for their second star, Paul George, who unfortunately only shot 4 of 17 last night and shot 24% from the field. But honestly, this was kind of expected after that rough Game 7 the Los Angeles Clippers had against the Dallas Mavericks. But either way, there's no excuses that he should be shooting this terrible. So on the Utah Jazz side of things, they also kind of had a tough night when it comes to shooting the ball in general. But I'm not going to lie, at some parts of this game, it felt like the Jazz were playing as good as they could in some of their best basketball, while the Clippers were just freelancing playing their game, and they were still keeping it very close. And like I said earlier, the Utah Jazz are one of the best shooting teams in the league in general. But last night they did struggle from the field, although they were exceeding from the three-point line. Even though they did miss a couple good open looks down the stretch, but the Clippers did as well. With Nicholas Batum hitting this shot going into halftime, this is where the Clippers had one of their biggest leads in the whole entire game all night. As expected, the Utah Jazz were not going to keep missing shots coming back from halftime, so you know this game was bound to be a close one. Coming back from halftime, that's when the Clippers defense started to look a little suspect. And at the same time, that's when the Utah Jazz's offense started to kick in. And that shooting carried on into the fourth quarter for the Utah Jazz, the most important quarter. While on the other hand, for the Los Angeles Clippers, Paul George and Marcus Morris were struggling shooting for the Los Angeles Clippers. Pretty much ended up costing us this game, and we went on to lose the game by 3 points. But before all that occurs, you can see right here as the Los Angeles Clippers have a missed shot by Luke Kennard, and then this is when PG pulls up, three-point shot makes, and then we get the ball back one more time, and this is where Kawhi or Paul George should have shot, even though I know Paul George was struggling. But look at this. Marcus Morris takes the last shot to win the game, and that is what happens, and that is how the Utah Jazz win Game 1 versus the Los Angeles Clippers. So as you guys seen in the highlights of Utah Jazz versus the Los Angeles Clippers, this is going to be a hard-fought series for both teams, and I definitely expect the series to go to a game at least 6 or 7. And as you guys seen, this was definitely a winnable game for the Los Angeles Clippers, and it just came down to who was actually going to play defense and who was actually going to shoot the ball efficiently. And the Clippers just failed to do that last night, so I definitely feel like we can come back to their place in Game 2 and steal a W before we go back home to Los Angeles and hopefully try to win 2 games in LA. But that pretty much wraps up the video for the recap of the Los Angeles Clippers versus the Utah Jazz. I would definitely be making more videos as the series goes on. So if you guys are messing around with that, make sure to stay tuned for the channel. And I appreciate everyone that watches the videos. Until next time, y'all, peace.